morning, or depending on when you're watching this, good afternoon, good evening, or good night. My name's Ross, and as always told, out of Voice of Radio. So today, we need to take a little bit of a look at baby Blacephalon. Hey, Nick. You see, the non-GX Blacephalon is a Pokemon that's been its own deck. And it's been kind of flicking around for a while. Initially, we tried playing it just as a speed deck with Welder, and it had a little bit of success, but it kind of fell off a little bit. And then the collective player base basically went, well, you know what? Towards the end of last year, Pidgeotto might be the answer here to making this a really good deck, a really successful, viable deck that'll work really rather nicely, and we thought, great. That sounds like fun. But it's not been a top-tier deck. Well, with the advent of Sword and Shield, we've got two more deck lists I can show you. And now don't get me wrong, one of them still plays Pidgeotto, but one of them doesn't. And this is just another one of those where we've gone, right, what new tricks did we get in Sword and Shield? How can we use them to improve this deck? It's what we've been doing quite a lot on the channel lately. Having a look at existing decks, good decks, looking at the current lists which are winning over in Japan, and essentially looking at how we're going to play these decks with Sword and Shield legal in the format. Well, today, ladies and gentlemen, it is a turn of baby Blacephalon. So, baby Blacephalon, on the face of it, right, when I say baby, I'm referring, of course, to non-GX. It's not an actual baby Pokemon. And it's got a somewhat expensive attack. For a minimum 3 fire energy, you discard any number of fire energy from your hand and do 50 damage for each card you discarded in this way. But the problem I've always had with this is that you've got to have free energy on Blacephalon to use it. You've then got to get a whole bunch of energy in your hand to discard in order to actually attack. And that always seemed like a lot. Although, like I said, having Welder around, that helps out quite a bit. Now, there is another attack there as well, if that's what you're into. 1 fire energy, 10 damage. Turn one of your face-down prize cards face up. If it is a fire energy, you do 60 damage instead. It's alright for taking out evolving basics. It's not really great for much more. The thing is, the two lists I've got to show you today are quite different in their supporting Pokemon. The one thing they really do agree on is, yeah, this is a Blacephalon world and we're all just living in it. They don't tend to play many other attackers. Now, the one thing they do both play is a single copy of Blacephalon GX. And to be honest with you, yeah, you've got the big smashy attack that lets you Lost Zone as much fire energy as you like on your field, doing 50 damage for each one Lost Zoned. But really here, what we like more than that is a GX attack, Burst GX. Now, it's just a single energy attack on a basic Pokemon, and we don't have any other Pokemon we're going to be using in terms of GXs here, so there's no other GX attack vying for our attention, and it lets you discard one of your prize cards. And if it is an energy, you attach it to one of your Pokemon. So you've got a chance there at a little bit of energy acceleration, but really here, you're just taking a prize. Now, you're not actually taking a prize, you're discarding it, but you still have one fewer prize left to take than you used to. That sounds pretty good to me. So, there's two different camps, really, when it comes to Blacephalon here. One camp is play it with Pidgeotto. You play a whole bunch of them during your turn, once per Pidgeotto. Look at the top 2 cards of your deck, put one in your hand, one on the bottom of your deck. It's just nice for a little bit of consistency. Simple as that. If you're not going Pidgeotto, you're probably going Jirachi. Once during your turn, if you're in the active, you may look at the top 5 cards of your deck, find a trainer card, put it in your hand, you go to sleep, but of course you free retreat with a skateboard. Both of these are absolutely viable ways to play the deck. They're both absolutely fine. Now, the Pidgeotto deck doesn't really play very much from Sword and Shield at all. It plays a 1/1 Ninetales list for a little bit of gusting. It plays Mew to protect the bench. It plays Ditto Prism Star, because you're relying on a whole bunch of Stage 1 Pokemon, your Pidgeotto, your Ninetales, etc. So it makes sense to play Ditto Prism Star that can evolve into any of them. And it plays Victini Prism Star because for every energy in your discard, you get to do 20 damage. And then you put all of that energy back into your deck. It's a phenomenal attack, of which I am a huge fan. Doesn't work in a Blacephalon GX deck, but in a non-GX deck, you're discarding a bunch of energy from your hand, so that works quite nicely. But in the Jirachi deck, they've gone a little bit different. They're playing that Oricorio. Every time you have a Pokemon KO'd, next turn you get to draw 3 cards. So he's playing a lot of decks, is pretty good. That Fione, which is popping up in deck after deck after deck in Japan. If it's on the bench, you may put it on the bottom of your deck. Stops you decking out, but it also makes your opponent switch their active Pokemon, which is kind of a little bit of cheap gusting. Obviously, you don't need it in a deck that's playing Ninetales. But it also plays 1 copy of Cramorant V, and we're starting to see Cramorant V popping up in more and more decks as we go. You see, Cramorant V, free colourless energy, discard all energy attached to this Pokemon and you do 160 to one of your opponent's bench Pokemon. And we're shameless here, we're going after Jirachi GX and we're going after Dedenne GX. You can finish off a Pokemon that's almost KO'd, you can take away a non-GX, but this will also get you 2 prizes, so it's a pretty good idea to try and do it. And of course we're playing Welder, so Welder plus your attachment for the turn gets the energy on Cramorant. I think in any deck with energy acceleration, at least while we've got 160 HP 2 prize Pokemon, you should get used to seeing Cramorant running around. Now, in terms of the energy, obviously we're largely going fire here, but it's a pretty good idea to go beast energy as well, because it does an extra 30 damage. It's cool. Just the 1, but that will do nicely. And moving into trainers, we need the fire tricks. Now, Fire Crystal becomes absolutely huge here. You get to pick up 3 fire energy from your discard, put them into your hand. This isn't like the GX deck where we're lost zoning, we're discarding. We need it back. This is pretty huge. And Fiery Flint to get the energy out your deck in the first hand, also pretty gosh darn huge. Now, in terms of Stadium, things get a bit more interesting, because whereas we would generally expect these fire decks to play Giant Half, because you're an Ultra Beast and you need the consistency, we actually see both the lists here playing Ultra Space. Let's just search for an Ultra Beast. Although obviously we do see 1 copy of Heat Factory Prism Star, because it gives you a little bit of extra draw power. That is pretty gosh darned important. Now, in terms of supporters, Welder is an absolute given, and the list playing Pidgeotto plays Professor Realm's Lecture. It searches for free Pokemon with 60 HP or less, but when Pidgeotto itself, the evolution, has 60 HP, yeah, that becomes a whole heap better. But as a side note, over both the decks, that is all we're really playing, yeah? It's basically just Welder and maybe Professor Realm's Lecture, because we've got consistency to get it all back. Now, obviously, at that stage, it means that Power Pad becomes a really good card, because 4 Welder isn't enough. Power Pad gets the rest, that's pretty important. And the list that doesn't play Pidgeotto does play Acrobike, gives you a little bit of extra speed and consistency here, which you don't need if you're playing a whopping 4-4 Pidgeotto line, but you may well need if you're just using Jirachi. I mean, in terms of tricks from Sword and Shield here, there's only really 3 cards, I think, which are particularly relevant. Now, one is particularly relevant, and that's Energy Retrieval. Energy Retrieval becomes great, and Energy Retrieval actually rotated out, and now we're getting it back in Sword and Shield. Lets you pick up 2 energy from your discard. No, it's not as good as Fire Crystal. Fire Crystal gets free. It has to be fire, but you're only playing fire anyway. But we're already playing 4 Fire Crystal. This is in addition to, not instead of. So that's kind of important. The list that isn't playing Pidgeotto plays Quick Ball, because you need that extra speed and consistency. And Quick Ball gets all your basics, and in that list, you are playing an entirely basic list, so Quick Ball becomes a phenomenal card. And we do actually see a little bit of lucky egg popping in. Just a little bit. Lets you, when you had a Pokemon KO'd with lucky egg attached, you draw until you got 7 cards in your hand. When you're playing a single prize deck and you're expecting your opponent to take 5 prizes and still not have won the game, i.e. 5 individual KOs leading to 5 prizes and not have won the game, lucky egg becomes pretty gosh darned good. I'll be honest with you, this is not the deck that's seen the biggest change since Sword and Shield came out. But it's still a very good deck, it's still a very viable deck, and being able to play things like Quick Ball, I mean, if we look at the Pidgeotto list here, this doesn't look very different post Sword and Shield. You've got one fishing rod to help recover stuff, that's about it. We don't see a huge difference. But if we look at the Jirachi list, things have changed a lot. Now we can search out all of our basic Pokemon using Quick Ball, so Jirachi becomes far more viable, Lucky Egg becomes a really good option, and Energy Retrieval combines with Fire Crystal to get those energy back, and all of a sudden maybe the Pidgeotto list looks very similar to pre-Sword and Shield, but the Jirachi list is something very new indeed. So there we go, ladies and gentlemen. I didn't just tell you one way to play it, I gave you 2. I thought it'd be nice. For now, I'd like to know what you think about it, so let me know in the comment section. Go nuts, but please do remember the rule. Be nice, would ya? And then make sure you like this video, subscribe to this channel, follow me on Twitter at @TheWassy, and Twitch for some live action at twitch.tv/PTCGRadio. If you want to support the channel, get some bonus podcasts and all that good stuff, head on over to patreon.com/PTCGRadio, where you can do exactly that. And please do make sure you're checking out youtube.com/WassyPlays, where you can find out about a whole bunch of games that don't have Pokemon in, but are pretty gosh darned awesome. But by far the most important thing, as always, look after yourselves till next time, would ya? Thank you very much for watching. My name's Ross, and you've been watching PTCG Radio.